In June 1941, Adolf Hitler made a fateful decision. He launched Operation Barbarossa, a massive invasion of the Soviet Union, even while Germany was still locked in a bitter war with Great Britain. This monumental strategic gamble didn't just decide the outcome of World War II, it reshaped the entire global map, creating political and economic systems that continue to influence our world today. Let us rewind to 1933. Hitler's rise to power was fueled by the deep resentment and economic hardship that plagued Germany after World War I. But he didn't seize power in a violent coup. Instead, he systematically dismantled Germany's democracy from the inside, using legal tools like the Reichstag Fire Decree and the Enabling Act. This transformed a constitutional republic into a totalitarian dictatorship. It was a chilling demonstration of how democratic structures could be subverted, a lesson that political scientists still study and debate. Once in power, Hitler began to test the resolve of the international community. In 1936, he marched troops back into the demilitarized Rhineland, a direct violation of the Treaty of Versailles. Then came the annexation of Austria in 1938, followed by the infamous Munich Agreement, where Britain and France agreed to let him take a piece of Czechoslovakia. This policy of appeasement was born from the trauma of the First World War, a desperate attempt to avoid another conflict. But Hitler saw it as weakness, a green light for more aggression. Just months later, in March 1939, his armies occupied the rest of Czechoslovakia, shattering any illusions that appeasement could work. The breaking point came in September 1939 with the invasion of Poland. This was the start of World War II, and the world's introduction to a terrifying new form of warfare, blitzkrieg or lightning war. It was a devastating combination of coordinated air power, fast-moving tanks, and mobile infantry. Poland was crushed in weeks. The following year, France, a major world power with a massive army, fell in just 6 weeks. The world was stunned. The French had put their faith in the Maginot Line, a series of powerful fortifications, but the German army simply went around it, a stark lesson in how tactical innovation can overcome static defenses. But Germany's momentum wasn't unstoppable. The first major setback came in the skies over England during the Battle of Britain. The Royal Air Force, though outnumbered, fought with incredible bravery and skill, preventing a German invasion. In a critical era, Hitler shifted his bombing campaign from military targets to civilian cities. This move, intended to break British morale, actually gave the RAF a crucial window to recover and rebuild. The Battle of Britain proved that air power was now a decisive factor in modern warfare, and showed how a determined nation could stand against the continental giant. Hitler's most consequential error, however, was his 1941 invasion of the Soviet Union, driven by his ideological hatred of Bolshevism and his dream of Lebensraum, or living space for Germans in the East. He completely underestimated the resilience of the Soviet people and the vastness of their country. The Eastern Front became the largest and bloodiest theater of the war, consuming the vast majority of Germany's military resources. The failure to defeat the USSR before the brutal Russian winter set and doomed Germany to a long, attritional war it simply could not win. As if opening a massive front in the East wasn't enough, Hitler made another catastrophic mistake in December 1941. Following Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, he declared war on the United States. He wasn't required to do this by his treaty with Japan, but he did it anyway. This single act brought the full industrial and military might of America into the war against Germany. Combined with the grueling war against the Soviet Union, Hitler had created an unwinnable two-front war against an overwhelming coalition of enemies. Amidst the military campaigns, one of the darkest chapters in human history was unfolding: the Holocaust. This systematic genocide of 6 million European Jews, along with millions of other victims, was not the result of a single order, but a gradual process of radicalization. The Wannsee Conference in 1940 to formalize the final solution, coordinating the use of industrial methods for mass murder. The world's horrified response after the war led to the Nuremberg trials, which established foundational principles of international criminal law, concepts we now take for granted, like genocide and crimes against humanity. and the principle that just following orders is not a valid legal defense, all emerged from this moral and legal reckoning. The sheer devastation of the war forced the world to rethink its entire structure. In 1944, even before the war was over, leaders met at the Bretton Woods Conference. They created the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank to prevent the kind of economic chaos that had fueled extremism in the 1930s. This established a new global economic order centered on the U.S. dollar, which supported post-war reconstruction and decades of growth. The political transformation was just as profound. The United Nations was founded in 1945, designed to succeed where the failed League of Nations had not. It gave veto power to 5 permanent Security Council members, acknowledging the hard reality that peace depends on cooperation between the world's great powers. At the same time, the division of Germany and Europe into Soviet and Western spheres of influence marked the beginning of the Cold War, a new kind of global conflict that would last for nearly 50 years. Yet, from the ashes of Europe, something remarkably positive began to grow. The historic reconciliation between France and Germany, once bitter enemies, led to the creation of the European Coal and Steel Community in 1951. This was the seed that would eventually blossom into the European Union. The goal was to make war between its members not merely unthinkable, but materially impossible by tying their economic fates together. It was a direct and successful response to centuries of conflict on the continent. The war also accelerated scientific and technological change. German rocket technology, developed to create the V-2 missile, was later captured and used by both the United States and the Soviet Union to launch their space programs. The atomic bombs dropped on Japan ushered in the nuclear age, raising terrifying new questions about science, ethics, and human survival that led to decades of arms control negotiations. Government funding for wartime research also created a model for scientific and academic institutions that continues to this day. Even our understanding of the environment was shaped by the war. The unprecedented scale of industrial production and the use of new, destructive weapons introduced environmental hazards on a level never seen before. While not a major concern at the time, historians now see this as a key moment in understanding the deep and often damaging relationship between human conflict and the natural world. So, when we look back at what Hitler said and did, we see a clear pattern: decisions driven by a rigid ideology, a tendency to overreach strategically, and a fatal underestimation of his adversaries. His actions plunged the world into an unprecedented crisis. Yet, it was the response to that crisis that forged the world we live in. The United Nations, the European Union, the World Bank, and our modern concepts of international human rights all rose from the ruins of World War II. This history teaches us a powerful lesson. Moments of extreme crisis can also be moments of profound and positive transformation. The institutions and values we often take for granted were created in response to specific historical failures. Understanding this connection helps us appreciate that how we respond to the challenges of our own time could very well shape the world for generations to come. The study of this past isn't just about history. It's about understanding the forces that continue to shape our present and our future. Thank you for exploring this pivotal chapter of history with us. If you found this analysis valuable, please consider subscribing for more content that connects the past to the present. We do love to hear your thoughts in the comments about how these historical lessons can help us navigate the challenges we face today.